I really wish we could change that greeting. It's so funny. Wonderful. So today we thank you for coming to this pop-up. I was just sharing how I love doing these so that I can finish my slides and have a chance to say hello to everybody. We're going to talk about activating online confidence. I have a lot to say on this topic, so I have organized myself in a series of slides and visuals that hopefully will be helpful for you and eye-opening, and also we'll have some awesome discussion at the end to really understand when we say online confidence, we may all be defining that differently. And based on your authentic version of you, what's true for you, what your life has been, who your audience is, online confidence doesn't, it's not always extroverted. How many of you are like really happy to understand that? It's not always extroverted. It's not always a constant thing. Online confidence doesn't, mass quantities of content online doesn't always produce results. And so I'm hoping that the way that we frame social media today and presence and being online is going to support you and showing up in a way that makes you feel proud, that slightly afraid and terrified. Because if you're fighting the that terrifying feeling that clicks in, you're not going to have as much fun, because joy and terror are sort of buddies. They hang out in the same frequency. So you want to get scared a little bit more. So if you're wondering if I'm going to make you go on video and speak today, if it terrifies you, you're welcome to volunteer. So that's a sign that we're heading in the right direction sometimes. And we just have to make friends with that. It's just part of the process. Here's just a little bit about me. I've been a transformational coach, a strengths coach for many years. I have over 15,000 hours coaching people into their optimal zone. I do a lot of workshops and online trainings. I'm the co-founder of the Breaking Through Live podcast community, which is just opening right now. We've been working on that for a year. I'm the founding chief marketing officer for Temple Spaces, former vice president of Guide Social Media, which is produces a lot of video for Shark Tank clients, and created a TikTok collective last year for them. And I'm the former marketing board chair of Conscious Capitalism in the Bay Area. I started in marketing in the 90s for a company that did basically direct marketing for the high-tech industry. So the very first events that I booked were for Bill Gates. I designed all of the event process for them to announce some of the technology that was shifting, including when they created the first CDR. So you're welcome. You're welcome for all of that is no longer needed, but all of those transitions, I had to write the copy and produce those events. So that's how old I am. I'm a lot older than I look, which is why I'm letting my hair go gray because I've earned all of that. But those are my marketing chops. So starting on these big global stages with world-class events, and then moving into the personal development, because why for me marketing means nothing if there's not relationship a part of it. It's just how we're designing our relationship. It's all communication, which is so amazing. Here's a few of those clients. Some I'm working with presently. Now let's talk about becoming visible. And when I say staying visible is no laughing matter, becoming visible, usually we wait and don't even want to launch ourselves out there all the way, because there's so much that happens with us emotionally, physically. It's hard to figure out what to say. Where should you say it? Do people want to hear from you in that way? There's the kind of content that you are admiring other people creating, and then when you try to duplicate that, it probably falls flat a little bit. You're trying to figure out, what is your public persona? What is that public persona? I have built many different public personas over my time, and some of them worked great and some of them didn't, because it wasn't authentic to me. I've been in the public eye since I was a baby. So meaning that I was born into visibility, and that came with a lot of pressure. So there were times where I felt like I was walking on a tightrope as I was launching my business, and that thousands or millions of people would know if I failed. And that wasn't always the case. Sometimes it was like a painted line on a street. Just felt like it was a tightrope over a cavern. How many of you have ever noticed that? Your level of anxiety over that visibility may be out of proportion than what it actually is. But that's all that deep inner work that we end up doing with our coaches. So staying visible when life is happening, you'll see in the top right corner, There's me in my wheelchair with my second child. And that was about in 2005. I ended up with a health crisis that lasted 10 years, and my visibility took a hit. And then trying to reckon with the vulnerability that I felt and not having a body that could always stay consistently in that public leadership, it was a real crash for me. I had to really unpack what being visible meant, how I wanted it to feel, and figure out how to empower myself to be in charge of what went out into that world instead of feeling like a victim to the marketing, a victim to the audience. How many of you can identify with that? There's days you don't want to be seen, and you can feel this pressure that also can make you shrink. So I share that just so you know, like, I've been on all spectrums of this journey, and staying consistent and visible and learning to love it is something you can learn to do. People are surprised when they find out I don't love being online. I have this fantasy that I'm never online for my business, yet my entire business is online right now. So there's a layer of understanding, like if you're going to eat, you got to wash dishes eventually, because what happens? It stinks. Those dishes are going to stink. They're going to get harder to wash if you avoid them. And that's how being online can be. It's one of those tools that we have to learn. It's a skill. Technology is your path to creating an amazing business. Now, you can create your business in other ways, but this is the fastest. It produces, it can produce, so you can just help so many more people, if you're willing to learn how to wash the dishes of visibility. You can't eat and not wash the dishes. I can say that because my parents have a restaurant, and I remember being 8 years old and learning how to scoop out somebody else's eggs in lukewarm water in the sink. And that experience and the discipline of not resisting what it actually takes to do something. We all have those stories, but I use that skill because it takes a little bit of grit and a willingness to be in the uncomfortable to get the job done. And that is a resilience that you can grow. So right now, I would love for you guys to sit down and look at your paper right now. Just take a look, pull it out, and make a list just of the first words that pop into your head. You can even do it in the chat box if you don't have a piece of paper. But how do you feel about being online? What are the very first words that come up for you? You can go ahead and put those in the chat. If we said today we're launching you out into the world with your message, what are the emotions, the words that come up? And it could be excitement. It could be, boom, I'm ready to go. And you also maybe have the first question might be hesitation. It might be, what do I say? Who am I talking to? You might be feeling right away the lack that you're making up you have. Like, what are you missing? That's the reason it's not happening to that extent right now. Just take notes of those. How do you feel about being online? Whatever your answers are fine. Put them in the chat if you want to connect with other people. And my next question for you, continue to journal this, is who do you think you have to be online? What does success look like online for you? You might have, some people often say, well, Amy Porterfield or Marie Forleo. I never wanted to be them, ever. Like, I never thought, oh yeah, I want to be a mogul of a huge media company. And that was never how I envisioned myself online. I never wanted it to be huge. I've done a lot of sabotaging to keep that for the things that wanted to grow. There were things that wanted to grow bigger. And because that wasn't what success looked like, I squashed some things. Some of you might relate. Like, there's something that's really working and you're like, I want it to still feel controllable, because you don't know the team that you need yet. But just imagine, what does success look like? I may wake up tomorrow and change my mind and decide to be Amy Porterfield, but today it's not my dream. There isn't a single influencer that I've ever been like, yeah, I want this model to look like that. Partly because of my strength set, and partly because I like to serve in a lot of places. I like to amplify other people into that spotlight who seem to enjoy that a lot more than me. And you're learning that about yourself. If you're here, or you have an online business, you're figuring out, how much spotlight do I enjoy? Where is it that I really enjoy it and I have ease? And what's my goal? If you're holding yourself into a fantasy of what you think being online will look like, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment sometimes. And you get into perfection mode and it's hard to get started because that image of what we think it should look like is too loud. Now, as you imagine yourself, say you're doing it, you're growing confidence, you're showing up, people are engaging with you online, you're consistent in your social media presence. How do you want to feel while you're gaining that visibility? How do you want to feel? And again, we're tapping into that emotion because we want to know, we want to design around that experience. You want it something manageable and to design something and be clear on what is possible to feel, not looking for 100% comfort, because again, there's a risk, right? You're stepping out into the unknown, and depending on your personal story, that's going to have some level of anxiety with it, especially if you have a big story. How many of you have a big story? So being seen or inviting an entire audience to come connect to you in your life PhD, as my friend Jim Neiswanger calls it, you're connecting to people in that space of your own story where your wound was, if you're sharing a transformational or inspirational message from that, it can feel very exposing. So we want to hold that with compassion, and be nice to the version of you who's tender there. It's really, really important. And also, empathy is the name of the game in online presence. So if you can't have empathy for your own journey and this experience, this is what we're walking through together, having empathy for ourselves as we're stepping into this, compassion. Empathy is what drives virality. So staying in touch with your most true self, the wisdom that's coming through you, the vision and the people who you're talking to and caring about them, that is what is going to bring more value into your content. People want to relate in 2021 and they want value. So now that we've done that little bit of an inventory into how you want to feel, what's happening with there, let's do a little bit of a reality check right now. So what's happening in your business right now that having more confidence in that visibility would be supportive? What's happening? You can type that in the chat box. If you run a social media handle, you can put those in the chat box so that you can connect with each other. But think about that. And I also want you to think about for a moment, is the reality of, is there engagement happening right now for you? Are people engaging? How is it, I go once a week and I'm on there. I go once a month and I'm on there. Let's just be in the reality of that. So we've talked about where you want to be. Now we're talking about where you are right now. Okay, let's go back to the chat here. Yes, this is awesome, Lexi. So moving from exposed, unsure, empowered, limbo, alive. Yeah, and it can be this back and forth also. It's like sometimes it feels great and sometimes it's like, ooh, awesome. And success looks like providing resources, empowering others to take responsibility, authentic relationships and community. Beautiful. And Sanella says, I want to feel connected. And so far I haven't been able to keep my group going and I'm not sure how to keep people active. Yes. So Sanella, that's like a sense of like building community perhaps around. So that sense of I'm building something in a structure that I can help engage, but there's connection happening them with each other. And I am not, all of that isn't on me. So I want to see it happening and I want to be able to come in and out, but they are connecting with each other. That would alleviate that. That's great. So how do I keep people engaged and active? Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. So here's just a few of the places that hit our confidence when we're thinking about being online in some capacity. So we have LinkedIn, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, email, which is another place to be present, and Twitch. So these are just a few, right? Out of those, in the chat, comment where you are committed right now. Like, what are you already doing? Just give me a number of how many platforms, and you can be more specific if you want. So like, am I on LinkedIn consistently to have my LinkedIn profile? Snapchat, who even uses that? Well, if you have a younger audience, they certainly use it. If you have a joyful audience, they're probably on there also. It's very interesting which brands end up communicating in that. Facebook and Instagram, of course, that's where the majority, if you're selling any services, you want to be there. Are you on TikTok yet? How about YouTube? Do you have email campaigns going out? And have you tried Twitch? It just depends on your audience. Okay, great. So I see this. LinkedIn, excellent. Okay, awesome. Catherine, I love LinkedIn for you. That's great. Yes. And a lot of that expertise, Catherine, moving into YouTube, I see that working really well for you as well. Awesome, Carrie Ann, YouTube, TikTok, and building Instagram. And I've noticed your presence really growing this year, Carrie Ann. That's been really awesome. And I am juicing. I'm chasing you. I'm doing it. I've got the bevel on the counter. This is awesome. Carrie Ann is teaching me to love beets. 45 years people have been trying to get me to love beets. I think Carrie Ann's going to be, she gets the prize. She gets the prize. Yeah. Awesome. So when we think of consistency, we never say in marketing, like you have to be everywhere all the time. I mean, Gary Vee is like, hit it, hit it, hit it, you know, and Gary Vee is not my model. That's a very specific type of ad agency. They do something different. The purpose of consistency is really about relationship and what's the goal of the visibility. I feel like I have such a fire hose within me. Many of you have heard me use that. So whatever I'm doing, if I fire hose consistently, it takes off. So I spend a great deal of time in strategy and refining my offers, working with beta groups, because I know, I trust that I have all of these other boxes ticked. And I know what those conditions are for me being confident online. Like I'm able to just put a post up and say, maybe I'll get 3 people. It'll help me finish these slides today. I'm confident enough to do a small start because I like to really develop things before I go and throw money at them, especially with ad spend or something else. So that's one of my anchors of confidence, is having my offer really developed. But if you don't have an offer yet, or you don't know, you're still in the process of growing your messaging, your ability to write that you don't have to follow my lead. That's why I'm not giving you just a checklist and saying, go do it. Because it really does, it's all about what you're offering and the value that you're giving. So consistency for you and your audience is very different. I don't know how they consume their content. I don't know what, there's a lot of we have to understand your market and understand how you serve in order to really move that through. Looks like we just lost somebody here. Okay. So knowing what is the goal of the visibility, what do you want from your online presence? What do you want to have back from that? Write that down if you can. Put it in the chat box if you'd like. What's the purpose of it? It's always good to refresh with this because it's what will take you out of the perfectionism. What was my purpose of making this video right now? Do I know why I'm saying what I'm saying? Am I just trying to throw a bunch of value out there like spaghetti at the wall? Do I know what I want from them? Do I know, am I having fun? Sometimes consistency can just be so that you enjoy it more. You're not over in your head. Not all of your content is going to be amazing value, but staying seen is what allows the algorithm to play. So the algorithm now, like if you're growing an Instagram channel, like they're saying 3 to 10 a day now, because there's so much in there. Imagine that you have to hit it. Well, I don't bother to do that right now because I'm refining. I'm just not interested in growing my Instagram right now because I know my goals. I could grow it all the time. I could outsource it all if I didn't have the time. But there's this layer of, again, if your goal is to grow Instagram, do you have enough in your bank of, you're preparing for it to go out at that consistency. With some of the other goals of visibility, it's like I want new leads because I want to build an email list. I want new clients. I need 5 clients a month at a certain range. Is it to have more content out there so when you're on Clubhouse, People can see the value that you bring. Are you increasing your intellection in your content, so that you can have better conversations? Are you trying to get booked as a speaker? Are you trying to get subscribers on YouTube so that you're building a list that you can market to? It's really important to know exactly what that is, because you'll also be mapping out your funnel eventually. And this, knowing that you have that done, increases your confidence. Again, this is another confidence builder. I know why I'm here and why I'm saying it. I know who I'm talking to and I know where they go. When you have all of those things in place, it's a lot. Then you're not in your head and it doesn't feel random to you. These are some of the places where we get leaks. Okay, this is the part that I love right here. We think about, if you've done any work with me, you've seen I'm all about the 4 quadrants. I can make 4 quadrants out of anything, any conversation. I love to map them because this is what's happening all the time. So I want you to think about for yourself in showing up. I'm going to show up now in the visibility. I'm just deciding. I'm publishing my book. I want new clients. I'm ready to go show up in the world and give my gift. And I'm going to do it in the most authentic way possible. The problem with authenticity as a measuring device is that a lot of people don't even know what that is, because you're like, I'm in my expertise here. This is authentic, but people aren't connecting to you. So if your visibility is performative, it feels inauthentic, and you're committed right now, I still want you to do it. P.S. I still want you to do it, even if you're not sure. I still want you to do it. But you need to know, out of the engagement and getting feedback, are people able to connect authentically with me? Do they experience me as authentic? So that moves you out of the ego and back into empathy. So what happens if I'm out there putting content out in the world, but it's not fully authentic to myself, but I'm doing it right now? Here's what I learned from failing the hard way. I ended up with a whole group of clients that were not my ideal. And then I felt like I had set this expectation that I now trapped myself into maintaining this expertise, which I was trained to do, but it was very limiting. And so there wasn't synergy. I didn't love it. I started burning out. I could do it. I did it consistently because I've got grit, but it didn't take me where I wanted to go. So I felt like this train took off and I got on it, and I had the marketing down, and it was amazing, and it was all working, and it was lots of money. And I'm like, I'm so tired and I hate them. I don't hate them, but you know what I mean? That's what happens. You end up finding you resent people. You're like, why? And it's like, well, it worked. I'm like, I know, but I never wanted to be a CMO. It's like, well, now you are, because you signed up for that. I just didn't know what I wanted. And that's normal in your business. That doesn't mean Kate failed and dropped the buck. Although I love failing. I want to fail more quickly. I learned a lot about myself from that. I'm like, oh, okay. So that wasn't sustainable for me because I didn't know what the signs were that it was inauthentic, even though it worked. If you don't want to burn out, you want to make sure that you're aware of what's happening. Now, if someday I'm going to be visible online and I'm preparing, if I don't know, have that layer of self-awareness, I haven't figured out what my energy leaks are, my confidence leaks. So I'm not necessarily showing up in a way that's available for relationship. Then I scroll and I compare and I judge and I get critical. And I'm like, I like that. I don't like that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to be this, but not like her. Wow, I can't believe she's doing that. And I get petty over there because I'm like, I don't like social media anyways. Social media is the devil. It's going to tear down society. It's wrecking our country. Like, that's the energy that takes you there, because I'm not committed. And then it brings out this other version of you, which is also there. We all have that. You have a petty version within you. So it's like that version that's super critical, who's also highly strategic and amazing, but is also like overthinking, not. And then you're basically kryptoniting yourself and your marketing campaign, because now you're so in your head. You're an amazing analyst, but you're not really available for a relationship. So it just ends up it just sabotages it. Now, if you are like starting to become authentic, you're embracing your strengths and weaknesses, and someday you're going to be ready to just like go, but you got to get this done and that checklist. You got to download that thing and go prepare these things and go get your systems in place. And you can just totally take yourself out. And the someday can be like forever. It's eternity. Because you need to know, how do I get the urgency within myself so that it's authentic and it's now, but there's enough urgency, enough tension. And what happens at that place to move over from that quadrant to here, it has to do with who you're serving, and it's not about you anymore. Falling in love with the who you're serving, understanding the value that you bring that only you can bring, remembering what it feels like and all those testimonials when it really worked, and why you get up in the morning, and why it's worth sacrificing, and why it's worth 4 a.m. when it's 4 a.m. and why it's worth midnight when it's midnight, because you're here in this time to give your gift. And if you don't give it, somebody else is going to give it. I don't know how many of you have read Big Magic. It's a great book about creativity and like moving on the inspiration when it comes to you. I watched a really horrible TV series this weekend while I was cleaning my house. I just left Netflix on. And it was horrible. It's just so cheesy. But the plot, their initial plot, I wrote in a notebook on a beach in 2002. And so I was like, I have to watch this thing, because I also got the same idea for this script. I used to do screenwriting, and occasionally I still do. But I was like, this is the movie. I mean, they did a horrible job, but it's hilarious for me to look and see that I had this idea and decided not to finish it. And somebody had a similar idea, very obscure. These people wake up on an island with no memory of where they came from. And this entire series happened, and somebody made some money doing that. That's my line of urgency. So when I get an idea, I'm like, I have to ask myself, do I want that to go to someone else? Sometimes that's one of the ways I activate. Am I willing for that to go to someone else? Because if you sit back, that is exactly what happens. So if I can't stay in touch with the purpose of me showing up and who I'm serving, I just pull myself back over to the some days. And I want to live in the now. I don't want that idea to go to somebody else. So knowing that, let's talk about your optimal zone for a moment. When we say optimal zone, we're talking about embracing your strengths and your weaknesses. And in order to do that, embracing the weakness is the thing we avoid because we're judging our weakness most of the time, and often judging the weakness of others. We're really great at that as well. So I want you to just play into that weakness for a second. Think about your most embarrassing online moment. What was the visibility that you had that didn't go well? And I'm not talking about that time when I was in 8th grade and I was walking in front of the bleachers at the basketball game and trying to walk up and I tripped in front of 1,000 people. I wasn't talking about that. Or like the 6th grade spelling bee championship and I tripped on the way to that desk, because I trip all the time. I have Ehlers-Danlos, so that's what my ankles do. But I'm just like, those were like exposing but not horrible. And I'm not talking about the time when I was 4 and my grandfather finished preaching at his mega church and I ran up on the stage and said, I'm Wonder Woman, I've got big boobies. And I had 5,000 people who still tell me that story to this day. Like, those are all wonderful, visible moments for me. I like to do them live in front of people when I have all eyes on me. That's when I prefer to trip. But knowing that, like, what's the worst thing that could happen? I used to have dreams of being in the grocery store with no shirt on, just putting oranges into a bag. People are shopping and they're just saying, hi, Kate. And I'm like, hi. I'm like, what's funny? Why are they looking at me? And like, oh, you don't have a shirt on. And that's how being online has felt during a lot of my journey. Like, I'm out here doing something crazy. And that, honestly, that doesn't always go away for me. It doesn't always go away. Like, that's just part of what visibility is. It's a little bit, you don't have your shirt on. You're a little bit exposed. Some of you are going to quit because I shared that story. You're like, oh no, I don't want that dream. And maybe that won't be your thing. That's, who knows why I have that dream. I'll ask Sanella later. But there's there's just this place for each of you where you've had an embarrassing moment and you don't want it to happen again. It feels humiliating to share your gift for it, but it doesn't feel humiliating always. You have 90 seconds for that emotion to come. Your brain will close that loop. So if you can lean into that embarrassment for a moment, for 90 seconds, your brain will resolve it and will go away and your confidence will come back. So don't quit in that moment, because literally it's just your chemistry doing the thing. The chemistry has to go in. It's got to go. The chemicals are releasing. Your brain will resolve it. And if you can last for 90 seconds, you'll be fine. Isn't that great news? Our brains are amazing. So that's why they always say you just need 90 seconds of courage, because what's the worst thing that could happen? Oh my word, somebody's offended by what you say and they start bullying you and you have to turn the comment section off. Or somebody that is in your circle is like, oh, you're doing that online thing, huh? Are you doing that thing? And somebody you care about is questioning your gift. Well, we know that the people closest to us are always going to question our gifts, right? So we already know that. That's why you need a tribe of women around you that can remind you of that, because the people closest to you won't get it. But when you win, they will respect it. And that's a more valuable and potent emotion that I hang on to than all those times I was willing and I had the grit to do it, but it didn't always turn out. When you win and you gain their respect, that's a massive confidence booster. Make yourself proud. If you're building community, this is also part of that optimal zone and embracing weakness. You cannot create a perfect persona for your community. Do not create an avatar of yourself on a pedestal that knows all things. That is painful. And another booster here for your optimal zone is like having a place where you're free to fail. So work with a cold audience, do a personal TikTok account, play, practice being improvisational, play, cold audience, see what happens with a cold audience. You can market to a cold audience first. I did that on LinkedIn when I started my business. I made my first 50,000 on LinkedIn because I didn't have any real connections over there. And I just wrote some articles and it really worked out and it felt amazing to have that validation. So practice on a cold audience. That will improve your messaging. And I have some tools for that as well. Okay, so how do we get into that optimal zone? Your optimal zone is the peak of your confidence with the peak of your non-resistance to your vulnerability. So knowing it's going to feel vulnerable, I'm at the maximum vulnerability, slight panic, almost panic, back it off. Okay, just peak vulnerability. We don't want you to go over the edge into the panic zone. You want to be in the growth zone. So knowing what that edge is for you, where you're in the tension of that vulnerability, you're like, I don't like it. I don't like it, but I'm doing it. Oh, I don't like it. I don't like it, but I'm doing it. And when you have women around you or men around you who are also at that going, yeah, don't like it, doing it anyway, we stretch that. We can leverage the energy of us as a group to do it so that you're not on your own. If you're on your own and you're in secret about the vulnerability and pretending that it feels good, then you don't get the full, you're not ever actually going to get there because you're still shaming your vulnerability. You have to expose it. You got to let it out and let everyone see it. When you are better and better and better at doing that, your confidence again will shoot up because you're not shaming how much you don't like it. Now, the first few 3 to 5 years, what you'll notice in the life coaching industry or business coaching is we call it validation marketing, because the people who are judging their vulnerability do these long diatribe posts about being brave or being like oh, da, 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 da. And it's these long things and they're full of emotion and like trying to wrap somebody into a close in one long post. And we call that validation marketing. It's like, look at me doing hard things, but who's the star of that? It's not the client. The star is the ego. The ego loves those posts. The ego doesn't like vulnerability. So when I see those happening, I'm like, oh, awesome. They're being so brave. They're showing up. I hope it's short term. I hope the writing gets better because it ends up, they end up with a lot of codependency with their clients because it ends up, or you're partnering with people who share your weakness and you're not able to disrupt it. So it's okay to do, but you want to know when you're doing it. You want somebody to show you that if it's in your blind spot. And it's okay, but we want it to be a short cycle. It's okay that that's how we get started. Totally fine, but you're not going to live there. You're not going to live there. By taking a daily courageous action on video, you can 6x your confidence. So this is the same. These are the strength strategy numbers. These are based on data, which is that if you're in your A+ zone, high confidence, high vulnerability, giving your gift in that optimal zone, once daily, they'll 6 times is what confidence does when it goes up. So it's, yeah, I want you to think about that for a second. What does a daily video look like? Now, that doesn't mean a daily long form YouTube video. Doesn't mean a daily podcast. It could be that no one ever sees it, but it's you showing up. I have done a lot of videos prior. When I was in remission, I spent a year having ketamine infusions in 2013. And the way I coached myself through that, I was having seizures. I filmed it all. I filmed myself talking to myself. I started a YouTube channel. I've hid those videos for right now because I haven't figured out what I want to do with them. But I just recorded myself talking about the experience of being under ketamine, healing the pain, the difficulties, all of those things. And I just video blogged. And then when I had my son 5 years ago, I video blogged of trying to run my coaching business when I had a baby and all that life was happening. And I made friends with the girl on the camera. I just made friends with her and I didn't like her. She was too slow. Didn't like what she looked like. She was a victim. That's how I judged her. Just like, she wasn't moving fast. Like all those things that my inner critic stuff, I just was like, oh my word, I got to witness her at least. And in the process of getting used to my imperfections and my realness and gaining self-compassion for the journey, I started to see her as brave. I started to see her as a warrior, a world changer, a global phenomenon. And that shift and allowing myself to step into my purpose and make and embrace the imperfect, that it's not like I have this business in my head and it's perfect and then boom, here it is. It's like, no, I have to love the work in progress version of myself. And maximizer is my number 5 talent. And I don't do that graciously or gracefully either. Like, it's not, it's a little like tripping in front of the 8th grade gym again. Like I don't love imperfections in myself. I don't love them, but I'm learning to make friends with them. I'm learning to be like, look at that. And look at that. And here's, it's like, you can feel it, right? I'm like, I'm so trying not to judge that part, but we just have to embrace that vulnerability again. Because this is not something you do when you feel like it. It's washing dishes, it's scooping eggs. On some level, it's scooping eggs. It's just, am I willing to put a message out there consistently to remind people of who they are? Am I willing to try different things to figure out what my authentic self looks like? I have 2 accounts on TikTok, and I'm not a superstar. I have one video that's got like 700,000 views of me telling a story. It was just I was a response to a trend. And that one video of me not caring what it went increased my followers by like 4 times, which is only like 2,500. So it's not a ton. And my business account, what I recognize, what people want to hear from me is about emotional intelligence, because they like how I talk about vulnerability, weakness, and failure and triggers. That my lightness in that is, they're like, I want that. That looks like confidence. She's exposing herself and she's still on her 2 feet. She's still in the camera. So I recognize that my audience over there, I was able to play and be like, this is what they want. They want help showing up for the thing. And so that's why this class is here today. So there's a certain way that I can embody that takes the shame out of it, that helps people to activate. And so you get to test markets if you can make, just remembering that you're deciding to test them, and you can have fun while you do it. I don't know how many of you know this quote, but I just love it, because the irony of commitment is that it's deeply liberating in work and play and love. And the act frees you from the tyranny of your internal critic, from the fear that likes to dress itself up and parade around like rational hesitation, high strategic strengths, amazing. To commit is to remove your head as the barrier to your life. Your head needs to get out of the way so you can have more fun in your online presence. There's things you're going to learn. There'll always be more things. But if you can love it and do it in these like a heartbeat of consistency, joy and value and showing up and purpose and purpose and purpose, and let that feel that heart rate, that knowing you're going to expand and contract into it, the commitment will not be hard. Hard is just a story. You also need to master the volume of your energy. And you have strengths, some of your strengths. We use Clifton Strengths here, Gallup.com. But you have strengths that need to learn to improv. Like they need some improv. And so, like, literally, you need to be called out on the spot and asked to speak and show up in your value on the spot and on the spot and on the spot. And it's a practice, it's a muscle. I minored in theater. I love the stage so much because it saved me in this category. Like literally my own persona would be like in a closet writing. That's how I spent high school, in a closet, because that was as far I could get away from there's too many people in our house, and I needed quiet, and I was shy, and I would just write screenplays and love letters. And I wanted to be in my imagination. That was my best life. And if without this urgency and without learning to show up, I would never have gotten out of my wheelchair. Without improv, without a willingness to help other people who shared my condition and to share what I learned. And that's my coaching business was born out of that, respecting that I could leave breadcrumbs for the people behind me. And that is learning to improv and being seen. Here's a great quote from Malcolm Gladwell. In life, most of us are highly skilled at suppressing action. Like, we are full-time suppressors. We all are. And all the improvisation teacher has to do is reverse the skill. And he's created very gifted improvisers. Just reverse it. Bad improvisers block action, often with a high degree of skill. And good improvisers develop action. So knowing that your strengths are working harder to suppress your dream, it behooves us to understand what those strengths need in order to show up confidently. What is our formula for consistency based on our unique design? That's why I love the Clifton Strengths test, because we get really super specific and specialized in how we attack that. But literally, if you can figure out how to activate yourself, you have an embedded system now to activate when you need to. For instance, this class today I shared with you at the beginning of the call. This is part of my system. When I want to articulate a complete thought, if I put on the calendar and put some people there, I'm going to show up for it. I'm going to organize it, put my thoughts together, and tell it in a way that makes a coherent sense, hopefully, and do it. That's how I activate myself. Now, you might be activated in a different way, but you imagine that everybody has to go through the door of, like, when in online, like eventually you're in the visibility. Some people strengths need to hold hands and jump together. Some strengths need to like peek their head in and analyze it, get all the data, and then they'll jump. And that's okay, that's them. Some people need somebody to push them through the door because they're really never ever going in, but then they love it. Some people want to buy the door and like pay the experts and have somebody else go through for them. And they hire somebody to do that. Like, you have to know who you are of how you want that to go. Like, but so thinking of like, well, what do I want to do? I want to be the one that's in the door. Like, one of my coaches asked me last year, do you want your book and your presence to be an empire? And I'm like, there's really almost nothing in me that wants that. And I'm like, I'm testing that. I'm like, is that true? It's like, well, naturally, if I finish this book, which I am, if I finish the book, I want it to do well. Do I want an empire? I don't know if I want to run an empire. I kind of want to play in my garden and make out with my husband because he's a really good kisser. So like, I'm always like navigating, how much do I want to do that? And how much do I want to hang out with my husband? Because I just love that man. And so it's always like, I'm like, told him like, you're the kryptonite of this thing. You got to figure out, I'm like, you got to like help me keep going, because that's the whole part of it. But it's been so hilarious for us to navigate that conversation. But that's, I can have fun online because I know this about myself. I'm not in shame. I'm like, if I'm not online, it's because I'm doing something way more cool. And that's what I choose. I'm not in a victim conversation with myself about whether I'm online or not. I'm not going to do that in my relationships. I'm not going to do that in my business. So I'm empowering. I make a choice to be there. I'm intentional about how I do it. And I make a choice not to be there. As long as I'm at choice, I'm not sabotaging my confidence. And my visibility can pick back up. That's always possible. And if you are building intentionally. So improv with us, this is where we're going to end up here, is we are going to do a free 10-day video challenge. It's on Marco Polo. You may have played with us before. My daughter, Alyssa, is a video TikTok creator and YouTube star. And she's going to come and give us feedback on our videos also. And she may come in and make some suggestions, but we have 10 prompts. We are doing a 10-day challenge. Normally these are 5 days. It's free to come and join. Normally we do 5 days, but we've decided to do 10 because I want you to feel more than the disruption. I want you to feel the joy and get into some rhythm with each other. Does that make sense? So normally we do 5 days to disrupt, and then people would sign up to do something. We're doing 10 because I want you to have joy, fun, play. I want you to be able to redo a video if you want. And we're going to give you a daily prompt. The prompts are going to be calling on the value that you give and the feedback of, am I authentically connecting through the camera? So some of the questions will be personal. Some of them will be, it's all improv. And honestly, I have like 100 prompts created, but I draw from what I'm intuiting is the right one for the day. And usually from this, people end up creating more content in a lot of other places because it feels really good to stand in the visibility together. And so we're going to begin with setting some goals. My goal is for you to do 10 videos. Now, I can tell you from the last one that I run, probably only 30% will do the amount of videos that I ask. Like if I set a daily one, people are like, they overthink it, or they're not sure how to play, or they want it to look good, so they pull back. So for this 10-day one, I've basically decided to give you an option to still show up. If you're not going to make the video I've suggested, that you make whatever you want to make, but I still need a video every day for you to play. And then if you miss 2 in a row, we'll just pull you out, which is not a big deal. Because why do you think I provide that tension? You can type in the chat. We just need a little bit more urgency because it's too easy to not do it. We need to increase the stakes a little bit so that you can have more fun. And you're always at choice. You're always at choice. I don't want you to set yourself up for failure and have a self-confidence hit. So if you're like 10 days, can I do 10 videos for 10 days? Yes, knowing that if you can't do the one that I've asked you, or you feel like you don't have enough info for that and talking to me doesn't help, you can just make whatever you want. So there's no reason that you can't be on the screen for 10 days. You need the Marco Polo app. You need the Plus version. I might have passes, and so I may be able to just give you a gift. So if you don't have the Plus pass, ask me, because they usually give me a few. And the fun part about this is, like, here's some other little tips here, is playing in a safe place. We're going to be safe. Now you can use the videos you make in Marco Polo. They're the right size, so you can use the same video as a reel or a TikTok. So it's the same size. So we're getting you ready to be able to show up in that way without using trending music, without having to learn all the tech, although Alyssa can show you that if that's something y'all want to do. But there's just like a playground for us to improv together, which will be super fun. And there's a wild part of you that also wants to play out those fears. So you can also start an anonymous account somewhere and play in that way as well. I know a lot of people who run anonymous accounts. And so that would be expressing yourself, your truth on Twitter, an anonymous account. It's a great place to do it. Start an Instagram that's just solely inspiration and test out your content on a cold audience. You know, there's lots of ways for you to play if you're stuck. Play those fears out. Okay. Strategy, here's another couple tips just as we close here. Do you need a content system? Do you need to time block your ideal calendar? Yes. You need to be realistic about what it's going to take to show up. You need to make sure you have a spot where video works, and that where you've had the feedback from other people that lighting works, that it's working for you. If you want to do a time audit, you can schedule for 175, you can do a time machine session with me, and we will audit your time and set up a marketing time block with all the other things that you have to do. So we'll design your week so that you can win in your content creation. And my hourly rate for those is $175 if that's something that you feel you need. And I want you to also think about, for those of you with YouTube goals, you want to have the longer form videos or the value that you're giving. You can bank 50 of them in an asset bank so that you're not in this scarcity. I need to go make a video. You've like made so many videos that you just now can breathe, because those are just going to go out. So that's another way to get started, is not being like, okay, I'm doing the video challenge and then July I'm going to slay it. I would be like, well, let's make a bunch of them so that you can breathe, and then you're always ahead. That is what will also raise your confidence. You never have to chase the inspiration, because when the world shut down, I did not have enough videos in my bank. I did not have enough videos in the bank, and I couldn't access inspiration because all of my clients were in crisis. I didn't want to stay in the visibility. If I'd had a video bank at that time, I had them for my clients, but not myself, it would have been a very different season last summer. So this is how you are just being a good steward of your energy. Also, stay in your zone. Hire a video editor, have one. Don't try to learn it if that's not your skill set. Don't add tech and skills that aren't in your zone. You want just to have really good allies that can do that. And it doesn't have to be expensive. All right. Here's my calendar link if you want to chat with me. This is it right here for 30 minutes, or you can direct message me. And our challenge starts next week, but it starts, the week after next. So it starts on, we are starting on June 14th, on Monday, June 14th. And it's going for 10 days. There will probably be around 20 people inside the group top. I'm going to cap it because I can't watch more than that per day. That's the time I have allotted. If I'm sending out 1 minute assignments for everybody, that's about what I feel is manageable. So we're going to cap it at 20 max. My favorite groups around 10 to 12. So if you want to join us, again, it's free. It's just a chance for you to activate. And we'll, of course, provide other ways for you to work with us if that is in your best interest. Let me check here the chat here. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, after vacation. Good, Carrie-Ann. Yes. Any questions for me? What's percolating now that you're thinking about confidence in this way? I know it's a lot of info.
Yeah, well, for me, hey, it's definitely allowed me to think a little bit, because I know that one of the things I'm doing is definitely ramping up my social media presence, because I fully committed to not going back to work finally. So this is what I'm doing, and this video challenge is going to be very interesting, because I was like, well, I'm going to do it because I don't have a YouTube following, and I want to launch my YouTube following, and then I have the opportunity to do a TV show, which I'm going to work towards that as well, where I'll have weekly episodes, and I was like, oh, well, this is gonna be perfect. So it's just a lot of synchrony. It's alignment, I would
Love it.
say, for
Love it.
me.
That's perfect. It's it's a beautiful, I mean, you've done so many layers, Carrie Ann. Like you've evolved these different pieces of this. So this should really help you refine and connect. When you connect through that screen in a way that makes you so proud, you have everything else so well developed. You're ready because you did that early work, like all that program you did 2 years ago, and like you did the development. So you're ready to go. So now it's just showing up, which is exciting.
Yes, it's exciting. And I no longer have that fear of what people think. So I don't care anymore. I don't worry about that anymore,
Yeah.
which is really good because I know before I didn't do it because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to people say I couldn't care less. I guess it's like it's just me being myself. And if you don't like that, see you.
That's great, right? Because that's right. They're not for us. If they don't like
Yeah,
it, yeah,
yeah,
they're not for us. That's okay. We don't want to get on that train anyway.
exactly.
Is that right? I'm like, oh yeah, okay, great, good, because I didn't want you to burn me out. It's like
That is
I
true.
just
'Cause I think I compromised so much in the beginning. I did because I was trying to say, okay, this for you, because I'm like, no, this is what I want. This is what I believe in. So it's like, if you're not in line with me, there's a million other coaches out there. If you don't want to reverse your chronic condition and you want to still do that, I am not the girl.
yes, yes, yeah. That's awesome clarity. And knowing who they are and who they're not, that's this video challenge will again help you identify who they are and who they're not. We're going to be asking those questions that tease apart the who you're talking to, because you need to know who. And we'll
Yeah.
provide some other resources. Like, what do I say here? You know, if you're in, I have a different class on what kind of video do I make for Instagram? What is that supposed to be? And there are ways to think about how they're listening and how many people you may be most confident um, speaking one to one, like that. For me, speaking 1 to 30,000 people, my message changes because I'm gonna be like, why, oh, why do you sleep? Get out of your wheelchair. Why are you asleep? When the world is like this, like that, I have a different energy, a different presence for that. It's all about urgency for me. Wake up. We don't have forever.
True.
You know, we don't. And that activation comes out 1 to 30. Now, if I'm 1 to 1, I'm more curious, I'm more encouraging. And like, you matter. You matter. You need to let that go. You need to set that down. And my energy is totally different. And you can try out those different types of pieces of content and figure out what really lands for the goal that you have. So if I come in with my daughter wants me to do a mom avatar. So she had me change my TikTok just to try this out in my practicing of like, I'm just your business mom. Like I'm your drama coach. I'm somebody's mom and you're going to always get mommed. Like if you're in my presence. And I'm like, really? Like I'm like, is that, but I'm like, is that what I want that to be? Or she's like, not a regular mom. You're a cool mom. So that's what she had me put in my bio. And so then she bought me a whole cup and she keeps sending me all that stuff. So, and it's like, there has to be permission that I am a level jumper. Like we're going to talk about underneath your bathroom sink and pulling hairs off Q-tips if you come into my membership community. Like we're going to talk about all of those things and all of it. And so being able to disarm people is how I help them reveal their vulnerability so that I can do the confidence boosting. And so my avatar I have to embody that like on a TikTok channel in order to do that. Now, if I'm strengths coaching in corporations or on site, that mom avatar doesn't produce trust. So I had to have a separation of my LinkedIn presence stays different because it's just the way that you position for that market is different. And that used to be a real issue for me. But now, fortunately, my coaching it's booming. I don't have to worry about the corporate stuff now. It's not as much fun anyway. but I had to decide, along the way who, what I really wanted to be and own that presence. And I'm having a lot more fun just being myself for sure. If that works, if you can make money just being yourself, do you want to be yourself? Yes. Yes. Any other questions or ahas? Yes, Lexi.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to meet you.
Yes, it's nice to meet you too. I'm happy I'm here. Thank you for supplying this and making it available.
Absolutely. So there's the test. It's $20 for your top 5, $59 for the whole thing that shows the blind spot. And I run a membership community. If you check out my Instagram, we have a membership community where people are doing the inner game stuff through that door. And a lot of them are entrepreneurs like Carrie Ann and Sanella, but there's we go all in on our relationships and our authentic presence through that personal development door. And we can share that with you too during the link.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Anything else? Thoughts? Additions? Subtractions? Who's going to make a video today? Yeah, Catherine. Carrie Ann, Lexi, Sanella. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. So if you text me your cell phone number, that's the fastest way. I know this is not like traditional funnel, but actually there's only 6 of us. So text me your cell phone and I will add you to my contact list and add you to the Marco Polo group when we set that up. And there will be by Monday, so a week ahead, I'll do an intro and I'll put all the rules of the game in there and you'll be set to go. My assistant's still making the list. And if you want feedback on your videos, just be super clear, like, hey, give me feedback. So whatever you ask for, we'll provide, we will shape. You'll be able to affirm each other as well. So it's kind of a collective of us interdependently saying, wow, that was awesome. I really felt you there. Or what did you mean by that? We need that kind of feedback. That's why we need the plus version of Marco Polo, because we can leave little snippets on every video for somebody as a group. So it's powerful. Well, excellent. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you at the video challenge. And if there's anyone, here's the link. If you just, whoops, let me just add this here. Lexi, if you want to do a strategy call, you can do that because we've never done one before. So there's the link there. And if, for those of you that you want to share the challenge, let me know because I will give you this class link. You can play it for somebody and we can book them in. I'll make that available. All right, awesome. All right, have a great week and we'll see you soon. We'll take care. Thanks, Catherine. Bye.